now it went live. Um, so I'm still sharing my screen, and like I can see on the bottom how many spectators do we have. Can you see?
No, we can't.
We
But
are
we are
live.
live.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, welcome. Okay, so welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are going to be discussing and talking about pre-departure training or pre-exchange training, PDT, PAT, and educational activities within both CORI and SCOPY. So first, as a brief introduction, we are going to be 5 members today talking from both standing committees. We have Alison Juarez. She's from FMSA Peru, and she's actually, this is nowadays a SCORI supervising member. We have Amika Ko as Neo Nori out for FMSA Netherlands. We have Imane Esquali as a SCOPY array for EMA from FMSA Morocco. We have Veronica Moreno, the Nori from AMEF Mexico. And finally, me, Maritema de la Rosa, the SCORI Development Assistant from AX Catalonia. So welcome everyone. We are gonna have 5 main sections within this webinar. First of all, we're going to be discussing the importance of the PDTs, EATs, and educational activities. After that, we will be introducing and going further with the PDTs, both logistics and some contents. After that, we will be talking about educational activities. What are those? How can we implement those in our animals? And finally, we will share some experiences so you can get inspired by those. Then we will have a checklist from some resources that we already have available within our standing committees. And finally, a list of some tips for you all. Finally, we will be opening a question and answer time. So in case that during the webinar, any question, any doubt raises up, please just write it down and keep it for the end. So hopefully this will be a really interesting and a good webinar for you. So let's start. I will pass the word to Ali to discuss the importance of PDT, PATs, and educational activities.
Okay. Hi everyone. So I'm Alison Juarez. I am a SCORE supervising board member, and I'm going to explain first some definitions that you should know before we explain what is more about pre-departure training and educational activities. So let's move on first on academic quality. First, academic quality, it's every effort that you do in order to turn an exchange into an academic opportunity. So why we should do this effort? We should do it to ensure that our outgoings are motivated and qualified. And the person who has to do this effort are Leos, Loris, Neos, and Noris. So at the right side of this slide, you can see the nine tools of academic quality. Today, we're going to talk about 2 of them, pre-departure training and educational activities. Next. Okay. The definition of pre-departure training or pre-exchange training is both are tools of academic quality and are basically trainings that you should do before your outgoings go on an exchange. And the objective is to improve their performance, motivation, and exchange awareness. So as you can see in this graphic, this is basically a training that you do before your students go on an exchange, and you can do it generally in 2 steps, but this is up to you. You can do it also in 1 step. If you the well the first step is uh, to explain the process of an exchange, and you can do it before your students are exposed of of the application form. The second step is you can do it some months before your students go on an exchange, and the main objective in this step is to prepare your students on the exchange experience itself. Don't worry about this definition. That would be explaining better in later in this webinar. Next. Okay. What are educational activities? Are basically every opportunity to gain medical and scientific knowledge, I mean, theoretical classes, and to gain skills, practice classes, in form of workshops, seminars, or master classes. As you can see in this list, there are many examples of educational activities like surgery tutoring, history taking, journal clubs, and at the end of this webinar, we're going to share with you more initiatives about educational activities from some NMOs. Next. Okay, so uh, we already know the definition. So now we're going to see what are the objectives to about pre-departure training. And all of these objectives are divided in four big pillars. The first pillar is about to improve your exchange program. Because if you implement a pre-departure training um, in your NMO, it would be more likely that you get recognition from your university. Also, you can prevent ethical misconduct. You would facilitate that your students achieve their exchange outcomes at the end of their exchange, and also your students you would facilitate the work of your local officers through explaining the exchange process to your outgoings. The second pillar it's about develop interpersonal skills and motivation to your outcomes. So you can promote the active participation of your students and also improve their performance during their exchange through some trainings like communication skills or presentation skills. The next pillar it's about improve the academic performance. So this is the academic pillar. Your students can gain scientific knowledge, technical skills. These are educational activities, and also it's you would facilitate that your outgoings um, accomplish their scientific report. This is for SCORY, clinical case report for SCOPY, and also their exchange report for both committees. Um, and also your students would gain more knowledge on a specific medical topic. So the final pillar it's about intercultural learning and ethical and global awareness. And your students uh, would be more familiar with some intercultural issues like discrimination. Also, they would know more about global health vision, which is one of the IFMC programs. And finally, your students would know what really is the role of research in medicine. This is for SCORY. So at this point of this webinar, you would be very interested about implement pre-departure training and educational activities on your national or local committee. So let's learn how you can do it.
All right, I will talk something about logistics. You can go to next slide. Yeah. So these are the topics that I want to discuss. Everything that I will be saying, you can find in the pre-departure training manual or the PET manual. Next. So about the dates, preferably you divide the PDT or PET in at least two parts. One can be before sending the application form, somewhere in November or December, where you can address administrative issues, and basically you can this date is chosen because it's after the outgoings selection. And then part two can be given before going on an exchange, maybe on in March or April, because that's when the exchange season starts, and that can be focusing more on specific preparations. It will contain something about all the aspects of the exchange program, which we can refer to in the content. All right, next. About location. Well, of course, you can um, use your medical faculty or like a big congress center to come all come together. If you want to organize a PDT or PET on a local scale, uh, you can use the medical faculty of the LC, of course. But if you want to organize it on a national scale, which is also possible, um, it is um, yeah, it is recommended to use the largest or maybe the capital LC. And if you do it on a national scale, or if you want to do it like in like with overnight stays, it is also recommended to use accommodation locations. And it's very important to have a location which is a really good has a really good accessibility, and it's also recommendable if you have both conference rooms and lecture halls. Um, like the smaller conference rooms can be used for interactive sessions, and lecture halls more for the plenary ones. Um, Sometimes for accommodation, budget is required, so keep that in mind. And about accessibility, public transport should be really nearby, that it's really more convenient. Next. So I was talking about plenary sessions and interactive sessions. For plenary sessions, you can use projectors and laptops. So by using computers and stuff, you can put it on full screen. And then for interactive sessions, you can use flip charts, markers, pens, papers, post-its, every kind of material to involve students more. Like the markers can be used for the flip charts, of course, and then the post-its can be used maybe for like an evaluation moment or something like that. Next. Okay, about speakers. You can also invite speakers to your PDT PET, so you don't have to tell everything yourself as a Leo or a Neo or Lori or Nori. So you can make use of exchange trainers. So within IVMSA, we have exchange trainers, and they are able to provide trainings which are specialized for exchanges. For example, the intercultural learning training is really famous. But you also have the medical ethics on exchange training and the training goal setting. So you can always use those people and just reach out to your IFMSA board whether these are available. Then you have the external speakers, which can be professors specialized in global health or something like that, uh, who can provide seminars or be able to taking like participate in a discussion panel, which makes it very interactive. And then you have also former outgoings. They're like a valuable source of experience sharing. And for practical advice, they're really useful because since they have been on an exchange, it is really nice to hear from them some kind of like tips and tricks things. But you can choose whatever you want to use for your PDT, PET. Yeah, so that. And then I want to talk about finances. Um, oh no, no. First about the speaker. So like you can organize the PDT PET on a national level, uh, but it is really nice to have an organizing committee and assisting committee for that. I've experienced that in my country, and it's actually working really well for the last couple of years. Mostly we start like 14 to 16 weeks in advance. And on the right, you can find the positions that need to be filled. Like you need a chair who is in control of everything. And then you have a treasurer who keeps track of the money. Logistics and program, they are working quite close together to make sure that everything goes right on the day itself. Then you have a PR section who is responsible for something like the providing program booklets and making sure that the students know what to do. And then you have a catering slash accommodation member, because yeah, you need to have some lunch or maybe have dinner, and then you need a place to sleep if you have an overnight weekend. So on the next slide, you can find a kind of timeline. This is just an example. If you want more information about timelines and how to organize it, you can always contact me on my email address. But this is a kind of a timeline which I used uh, to make it all happen. Um, yeah. And then finally, the finances. You can always contact your IFMSA local or national treasurer to make sure if there's any money available for your event. You can ask the participants for an extra fee. Um, in my country, we let the participants pay an extra €5, which is not that much, I believe. And they have a full day, which includes a lunch and a lot of breaks with coffee and snacks and stuff. Um, so it's easy to make a lot from not much money. And then you can also choose to find sponsoring, like external companies who can provide materials for your event, such as flip charts or something like that, or maybe food. Um, or you can ask them for like covering expenses, so that they can um, uh, yeah, cover the costs for the students. So that's what I wanted to tell about logistics, and then we go on to the contents.
Thank you, Anika. So about the content of your PDT and PET, we recommend you to include certain topics. The first one would be the personal safety of your students. So it's important for students to plan before their exchange in order to ensure their personal safety. So it's very important for them to know about common infections and diseases, about water and food safety, and also it's good to recommend them to bring a first aid kit with the recommended list of materials and medications. It's important for your students to plan for effective immunity prior their exchange. They can also they can check for information about immunization on the exchange conditions of the hosting country. Your students also need to get fully covered by their health insurance for the whole exchange period. We can also talk about other insurances that are recommended or requested by the hosting countries. Next, please. So the other topic that is very important to be included in your PDT or PET is travel safety and visa. This is maybe the first time that your outgoings are going to travel outside their country or their region. So it's very important to give them tips on how they can plan for safe and easy traveling. So the first thing is that your students need to check prior their departure about any travel advisory warnings. Then they can get informed by checking the website of the Department of Foreign Affairs of their home country, or they can ask their contact person. It's also important for your students to know how they can protect their key documents, which are their passport, invitation letter, immunization documents, and so on. You can recommend them to bring paper copies with them and also have scanned copies of their key documents.
And it's also important to keep their key documents in a safe place. Another thing is that your students should be prepared for any emergency situation that might occur during their exchange. So it's important to have a list of contacts, emergency contacts, either from the host in NMO or the home NMO. You can also give them tips on how to deal with emergencies in some situations. Concerning transportation, it's important to remind your students that they need to book their flights only after receiving their card of acceptance. You can also give them tips on how to book their flights and how to get cheap deals for their flights. And the last thing is about visa. So you need to inform your students that they need to apply for a visa as soon as possible. You can also give them tips on how to solve their visa issues if they occur, and how to prevent them from happening in the future. Next, please. Another important topic that should be included in your PDT or PET is the student handbook or logbook. So you need to explain to your outgoings what it is and why is it important to use it. They need to know that it's important for setting their learning objectives, either by themselves or by their supervisor at the host country or by their professor at the home country. It's important for confirming attendance and getting the certificates, for evaluating their student performance, and also for evaluating the clerkship. And it's important also for getting recognition of their exchange. You can also tell them how to use it, and you can give them information about which student handbooks already exist. For example, in Scooby, there are translated versions and also specific department versions that they could use. And now I'm leaving the word to Annika, who will be talking about cultural competency.
Yes, thank you again. Um, so about cultural competency, I put a definition on the screen, which is like the ability of systems to provide care to patients with diverse values, beliefs, and behaviors, including tailoring delivery to meet patients' social, cultural, and linguistic needs. So actually, we need like to work together to provide in order to provide patient safety and satisfaction. But go to the next slide. It's quite hard because we are facing cultural differences every day in life, but in healthcare, you can see that by the perception of health and illness, which is different in some countries, like the definition of disease and what is healthy, and also the causes. Then you have adherence to therapy, like or maybe you can call it compliance. Like some people, they really stick to their therapy or their treatment, while others are less compliant to it. Expression of pain can be different in several countries, and also stigma on certain medical conditions. In some countries, some diseases are quite a taboo, while in others, there's like very open conversation possible. And then you have also the relationship with your healthcare professionals. Like in some countries, the doctor is like a god to them, while in others, they see them more equal, and like the patients feel like they have something to say in their treatment decisions. Next. So, why is it important to learn about cultural competency? As you can see in the migration shift and the rapid change in demographics, we need to provide cross-cultural care. And that means that there's a shift in epidemiology and endemic disease, which, as a future health professional, you should know about it and how to treat it, of course. And then you have some groups who are maybe not able to get the best care possible, but sometimes they need it more than anyone. So it's something about treatment equity. You need to provide as much care as someone needs. Then it's about showing respect and earning trust, of course, because it will be beneficial to the doctor's patient cooperation, and that will lead to better healthcare delivery, of course. Because you can see it as better healthcare focused on the patient. So, like adequate treatment decisions and compliance to therapy, but also better healthcare delivery and understanding diseases more. And actually, by it's like by our exchanges, we try to let students face difficulties, and like let them practice in an early stage of their education and build experience, um, in order to be a better healthcare professional later. Next. You can do that by we from Scopy and Scory provide different tools for that. For example, you have the training intercultural learning, which I was talking about earlier on. And in this training, the goal is to create more awareness of cultural differences and how to um, like the tolerance levels uh, to be good. As I illustrate in this picture, you see several stages of um, getting to know something that you actually have no clue about, like acceptance in the end. And that is what we want to provide with this training. And then next, um, we have the UNESCO pre-departure training. It is made with IFMSA in collaboration with UNESCO, and they have a lot of examples on which Mary will continue.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. So we need to remind ourselves that every year we are moving around 15,000 medical students around the world. They just pack their bags and they just go on exchange. And for at least 1 month, they are going to be fully immersed in a new cultural environment, and they're going to learn how to practice medicine or medical research in a new context. They're going to develop friendships and new experiences, and of course, they are going to have a lot of fun. But are they truly prepared for such an enriching and also challenging experience? Imagine you're a student doing his or her first clerkship in a country where there is a huge stigma on people with mental health problems. How would you behave in front of a patient with an undiagnosed mental illness? And how would you behave if your tutor required for you to perform procedures that you were not prepared for? So, in order to tackle all of these questions, all of these challenges, FMSA decided to develop this UNESCO PDT that Mika just mentioned, um, which is a training that can be included within the global PDT as a single session or like a morning or afternoon session. And its goal is to increase the exchange students' ability to face ethical and cultural challenges in their host countries with greater confidence and to protect the patients that they will encounter. Um, this is also, of course, translating to generations of the future, because it's been proven that physicians with better skill in terms of ethical principles, they perform better in their work. So, how is this training structured? This training is featuring 4 sections on the basics of medical ethics, then on culture shock. Third section is exceeding a level of skills, and the fourth one is research and ethics within research. It is a combination of a bit of theory and some case studies. In total, we have 14 case studies. 2 are soft, as an example, and then the other 12 are meant for participants to discuss in small groups and lead to some outcomes. All the content of the training is being included in a PowerPoint presentation, and it's perfectly ready to be delivered during the PDT. It's important to remind ourselves that the whole sections are both for Scopy and Scory. Though if you only have outgoings for Scopy, then of course the fourth section can be applied. Then, as for the delivery of the training, so it's basically expected for one presenter to be explaining the theoretical portions and facilitating the cases, and then to gather the students in small working groups of about 5 to 8 participants. And the goal is to have a plenary in interactive discussions. So in the end, you can just wrap up and share the outcomes. In case you can have the Leos or the Loris or even some members of your NMO around to help you to lead the discussions, is always it's always good. And finally, just to keep in mind, is it's important to say that our goal is never to impose any answer, because when it comes to ethical, there's no right or wrong. Our goal here is just to incite reflection from the students that are going to go on an exchange, and prepare them so they can actually apply ethical principles when they're going to encounter challenging situations. And finally, just as a final mention, the implementation of the UNESCO PDT is within the Scopy and Scory strategic plans. And so our goal is to have at least 80% of the NMOs implementing the PDT in general, not only the UNESCO, but in general by 2018. And of course, we would like for the UNESCO to be in the same percentages. It's going to be the UNESCO PDT itself is going to be sent over the servers and shared with all of the Novis and NEOs very soon, by the end of this month. And you're going to be able to make use of it. You're going to be able to translate it if you want into your own NMO languages to modify it as you need, as we previously mentioned. And yeah, so please stay tuned for the release of the training. And finally, now we're going to speak about global health.
Well, last but not least, global health. Global health is an area for study, research, and practice that places a priority on improving health and achieving equity in health for all the people worldwide. The exchange program of IFMSA has been the first international program aiming for the world in which medical students unite for health, for global health. As Mary said before, IFMSA has a huge network of students working on making over 15,000 exchanges possible every year. Through this experience, a student will be in close contact with local population, which automatically facilitates the experiences of health on an international level and the effect that social determinants have on health. This will inspire students to advocate more in their societies for addressing social determinants of health and health equity. Let's take a look on the global health learning objectives. By the thank you, Mary. By the end of the exchange, the student must be able to recognize the following things on the host country. To know primary health concerns and basic epidemiology, a structure of healthcare and medical education system, and doctor-patient relationships, and identify the main difference in public health systems. But why is it important to include global health on the PDT? Can you pass next slide, please? Well, the CANMATES framework identifies and describes the abilities physicians require to effectively meet the healthcare needs of people they serve. These abilities are grouped thematically under 7 roles. A competent physician simply integrates the competencies of all groups. And exchange is a great opportunity to learn more about global health, healthcare systems, and social determinants affecting all around the world. But you may say, Vero, global health is a huge topic. What should I include while facilitating the PDT? Can you pass the next slide, please? Well, to achieve the global health learning objectives, you should include definitions on global, public, and international health, social determinants of health, healthcare system, SDGs, and the differences between equity and equality. And can you pass the next slide, please? And to make the information more understandable and catchy for the students, here are some tips. Use videos, charts, images, make activities like discussion, group discussions, role play activities, and of course, do not forget about using and sharing with the outgoings the Global Health Guidebook. And if you have any doubts about any of these topics, don't hesitate on contacting any of us or the certified exchange trainers that are in your NMO. Remember, the PDT is the first contact that the student has with this experience. So it should be great. And now we're going to talk about educational activities. Mary?
Thank you, Vera. So, as Vera was saying, the PDT is most likely the first contact that our students are going to have with such FMSA trainings. But such process of giving them skills and understanding of the local healthcare and the hosting country healthcare should never stop with only a PDT or upon arrival training, a UAT from now on. We have to remind ourselves of the 9 AQ steps that Ali first mentioned. And among those activities that we as FMSA and most specifically as choreoscopy people, we can also organize some educational activities. So we understand educational activities as offers that we can give to the students or opportunities to gain medical and scientific knowledge and skills, either in the form of workshops, seminars, or master classes. For instance, as we saw previously, but just as a reminder, we could organize a workshop on surgical suturing or history taking for professional exchanges. So these activities, educational activities, are meant to increase the academic quality of our exchange program, and we can involve both incoming and outgoing students. As our main objective here is just to acquire knowledge. We are not preparing specifically for an exchange to be departure or to be started right now. We are just giving knowledge around the exchange setting. So what are our main objectives? First of all, we want to provide tools to improve the academic competence and performance of both our incoming and outgoing students. Then we also want them to understand what medical research really is and what ethical misconducts are to be avoided in their research exchanges. We also want to stimulate their critical thinker through real situation workshops. Uh, we also want to make them understand what the health systems and global health issues are in both their countries of origin and the hosting animals. And finally, of course, we also want to achieve recognition for the exchange program, because when we are showing that not only we're sending students all across the world, but we are also providing them with knowledge and competences, we can achieve better recognition and certification for our program. So, just as some examples, some basic ideas of possible education activities that your NMO could organize. You could host a workshop on surgical suturing or history taken. You could also have seminars on epidemiology or public health issues in your country or NMO. You could host a conference on some global health topics within exchanges. You could also arrange a weekly or monthly journal club to be hosted in a local committee or in a national level, depending, of course, on how big your NMO is. You could also organize a poster fair during an NGA or any other setting to present the outcomes of especially SCORY exchanges, but also SCOPY. You could also organize some kind of contest or even arrange a scholarship and grants for some research projects that have been presented and that want to continue working further. And finally, you could also arrange some field visits to certain healthcare facilities or even some NGOs. And in order to achieve so, we as FMSA, we can reach for both our internal members and both also for external organizations to help us on building such activities, because we are really used and we are when it comes to databases anyways, no one has any problems, but when it comes to arranging new projects and new activities which are kind of different of the setting that we are used to, we might need some help. So internally, we can always try to reach out for other standing committees within our federation, and especially SCOMI, of course, because they are working with medical education, in order to ask for some help, for some support, for some trainers even, or just content, in order to arrange our educational activities. You could, for instance, host a joint session with SCOMI and SCORI and even SCOPI on open access, or you could reach out for SCOF to organize a seminar on public health on a certain country. We also need to remind ourselves of FMSA programs. So FMSA programs are a setting for NMOs that are already organizing some activities within a joint topic. And enrolling these activities under the FMSA programs can give us support when it comes to management, when it comes to collaboration, and of course when it comes to recognition of such activities. You can check all of the already existing FMSA programs in the website. Here you have the link, and of course address any concerns to the or any doubts you have to each of the FMSA programs coordinators. Then externally, we need also to remember that we have local NGOs that we can reach out and that we can try to ask for support or even partnership when it comes to organizing such activities. We can also reach out for the government of the health or even education departments. And finally, perhaps some scientific institutions and research centers within our cities or our countries that we know of and that we could potentially work with. So now we're gonna talk about a bit the how do we assess the impact of such activities.
Yes. So first of all, I want to start like why is it important to do impact assessment? So impact assessment is basically you do a pre and a post measurement. As you can see in this graph, you do you measure beforehand what people already know about the subject, and then after it you will assess people with the activity and people without the activity to see whether there is a shift in more knowledge, if there is, and if the goal is reached more by organizing this activity. And you can use it in both the educational activities as organizing the PDT or PET. So it's really important to know like why and how you can actually improve your activities. Um, so go on to the next slide. And for that, you can use the SMART method, which is quite used a lot in our medical curriculum. So SMART is consisting of five pillars. So it's actually standing for what your goal should be. Like your goal should be specific, it should be measurable, you should know when you reach your goal and when not. It should be attainable, relevant, of course, and it should be within a matter of time, so time based. And you can use this SMART method to come up with uh, questions for your impact assessment um, in order to know whether your activity was successful or not. Then on the next slide, how can you do that? You can do that by data processing online. From my own experience, I use the Google form to do impact assessment to obtain information, and then you can actually use the answers in the Google spreadsheet, which is connected to the Google form, to analyze the data. And then eventually you can write an evaluation report with your main outcomes and future suggestions to make this activity even better in the future. Um, so that was about impact assessment. And then I want to give the word back to Vero about sharing experiences.
Well, can you pass the next slide, please? I know you may be thinking that we are only exchange officers. How did we do that? That's so hard. But there are tons of neos and noris around the world working on educational activities. Here are some examples of them. But I want to focus on one specific topic that it's always there. Teaching medical skills program. That it's work by SCOM. And as the name says, this program is about improving the medical profile of students by organizing workshops, online or classroom courses, or any other activities about a specific medical ability. Work on this program without knowing they are. Maybe you know this as the MEDEX. In IFMC Poland is held in 12 local committees for more than 400 incomings each year. ASEMCOL Colombia also works on this activity. What is it about? Can you pause the next slide, please? Oh, well, the next. Well, uh, it's about a series of workshops in English focused on medical education and improving medical skills organized for the incoming. What can you do? As you can see, you can use a a physical examination. You can also give sutures, workshop, BLS or ALS, venipuncture, AKG interpretation, physical examination, projecting movies about medical issues. And also, can you go back one slide? For those who like more the research or are working more with Scory, you can include critical appraisal courses. There's right now an activity on Mexico that it's called How to Come Up with Research. And what is this about? Well, since last term, we settled a timeline of the making of a research, and we gave webinars facilitated by capacitated tutors, and we include a pre and post assessment to measure the impact that it has. You can also try to give a workshop about how to write a poster, and at the end you can make a display of all the posters, and also you can make like a poster fair and make I forgot the word, sorry. And what else can you do? Well, if you go to the next slide, please. Next, there. Well, you can also work work on the series of workshops by that is held by IFMSA ISAX Catalonia, that it's the Harry, that it's a series of workshops also about research and some stuff like that. You can also include how to write a protocol, lab skills, and there's a lot of things that you can include on your educational activities. Those were some examples. I know there were a lot on the chart, like the Prague School of Diabetes camp, that it's from IFMSA Portugal, and also, oh, you can make a contest of the posters and contact some tutors to decide who is going to be the winner. And there's a lot of things that you can do, but basically most of the NMOs are working on this program, so don't forget to enroll these activities to that program. And don't forget that the facilitating the UNESCO PDT and talking about ethics or intercultural learning in a training that lasts longer than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but you can give trainings about 2 hours. That can be uh, included on the teaching medical skills program. And if you have more questions later about this, you can always contact your DAs. Their email address will be at the end of this webinar. And I think that's all. I don't know if you have any questions regarding any of the things that I just said or any of the activities, because this is important for you to know and know how to organize that. As the previous speaker said, they gave you the resources and how to make it, but you should understand that there's a lot of people working on this. And now we're talking about resources. Iman, it's your turn.
Thank you, Vero. So, of course, there are some resources that are available for you in order to prepare for your PDT, PET, or educational activities. So, for you, exchange officers, you can find the pre-departure training manual and the pre-exchange training manual that are prepared by the Scope and Scori ITs. You can also use the resources available in the animal sharing folder in order to get inspired from experiences of other animals. And you can also, as it was said previously, the Global Health Within Exchanges manual. Next, please. So for your exchange students, you can share with them some manuals. We will talk about them in the next slide. You can also share the links of some resources available in the IFMC website, such as the exchange conditions, explore pages of other animals, the frequently asked questions database, and also the exchange reports database of both Skopje and Skori previous outgoings. Next, please. So there are some manuals that are made for exchange students. Of course, we talked about the student handbook and logbook that you need to share with your students in order to bring them to their home host country. There is also the IFMSA pre-exchange booklet that is very, very interesting and that could help your students prepare for their exchange. There is also the how to write an exchange report manual, so that your students can know how to write their exchange reports at the end of their exchange. And of course, the global health within exchange manuals is not only useful for exchange officers, but also for exchange students, so that they can learn more about global health during their exchange. Next, please. So there are some resources that are going to be shared soon, and that will be very useful for preparing your pre-departure training or pre-exchange training. It's the manual on visa issues. It's also useful for students. There is also the PDT PET visa template. So it's a training about visa that will be available for exchange officers that they could choose. And also there will be some materials about UNESCO PDT, as it was said previously in this webinar. And we will end with some last tips for you. So first of all, you need to make sure that you promote your PDT or PET or your educational activity, so that the students of your faculty or your outgoings are informed about it on time. You need also to prepare in advance your materials and the logistics for the activity. It's also important to use the resources that are available and also get inspired from the experiences of other animals. You can also collaborate with other standing committees, with other partners and externals in order to have a better outcome of the activity. And lastly, don't forget to ask for feedback from the participants of the activity and to measure the impact of your effort. And now I will leave the word to Vero.
Hi again. Please write any questions that you have on the bottom of the video, or well, if you're in your phone or if you're in the computer, just write it on the comments below your questions. So far, we just have two that said, the first one said, can we have later the presentation? And I think we're gonna share it. We'll let you know if I don't know if via email or via the Facebook event. And the second one is, poster fair is not common in my country. How can I introduce that kind of activity? Well, first, you have to decide if you are going to just vote standing committees, SCORI and SCOPI. SCORI can make a poster about their exchange experience and what is the research line that they are working on. You can have a brief introduction, there's some background, and adding the things that you have seen during that time that you're on the exchange, and all the results that you have seen during that time. And if you want to present a Scopy poster, you can try to see in a clinical case that it's so interested for you that you haven't seen before, or the patient is special, like you haven't seen that disease in your country or whatever, and you can do some research about it and include 5 bibliographic sources. And then whenever you like teach your incomings or outgoings how you can do it, and then they decide the topic that they're going to talk about, you can facilitate a mini training about how to write a poster and how to accommodate the information on the poster. There are a lot of PowerPoint presentations or also websites that teach you how how can you make a poster. So after delivering that mini training and after the student shows their topic, they start on the making of the poster and all that. And you set a deadline, and at that deadline you get the posters via email. After you like look all the posters that you got, you decide if they need to be changed or not. You can also give like a little feedback to them, and then you can print them and make a display whenever you want. Even in Facebook you can just like post the photo of the poster, but I really recommend that you print all of the posters that the incomings or outgoings have and place them somewhere on the school, so the other students of your school can see what are the outgoing students or incoming students doing, and that will be inspiring for them to go on an exchange experience. I don't know if I solved your question. And also, if you want to make a contest, you can contact some of the tutors working with your exchange program and ask them to see which one will be the winner of that, and you can just give a little certificate or something. And I think there's more. Will the webinar be available as a video later on? Yes, it will. In the Global Health Manual, it's included on the news folder. Yes, it is included on the news folder. I don't know if there are some more questions.
As a small addition on like where the outline, we will actually post them on the Scopy and Scory server, so you don't need to send your email for that. It's just that we will send it on the server.
Please don't hesitate on asking any questions. We're here for that. I will give like 1 minute more. I know that the video has like 8 minutes, 8 seconds difference. So I'm gonna just wait a little more.
Okay. So far no more questions. So in case some more questions are gonna occur to you in the tonight or in the following days, or whenever you're gonna try to implement some new educational activities within your NMO, on if some doubts arises when you're starting to your preparations towards a pre-departure training, we just want to mention that both the development assistants for Scori and Scopy. So for Scori, there's Tarek and me, Mary, and for Scopy, there's Paula. You can always address us on the email, and we are there to support you. So in case of any doubts, please do not hesitate to contact us. And finally, we would just like to thank you all for your attention. We hope that the webinar has been informative, has been helpful for you. We hope to see many animals implementing new PDTs, implementing especially the UNESCO PDT, and of course new educational activities. And yes, please contact us in case of any doubts, and keep making Scopy and Scory be the best standing committee within FMSA. Thank you all, and good night, good morning, whatever it is for you. Bye
Bye.
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 Bye bye.
Bye.